Hello there, it's Connal Finlay here, the owner and director of the Cellar store down in New Zealand, and welcome to today's episode of the Cellar TV. So, today what we're going to be tasting is this fantastic, and I cannot stress that enough, fantastic white wine. In fact, it's rather legendary all around the world. And this is a little close-up shot for you. So we're drinking the Daumas Gassac Blanc. This is their absolute top wine. They have red as well, which matches this. And effectively, it is the most exciting, and as I say, probably the most legendary and even underrated white aromatic wine in the whole entire world. It's from the Languedoc region, and Daumas Gassac is absolutely, well, yes, I'm going to say it. Put it out there, it is the leading winery in all of the whole entire region. And this particular white, it's always made up of a few different grape varieties, which is quite interesting. And grape varieties which you probably wouldn't necessarily put together yourself. And so every single year the absolute percentages change ever so slightly. But this is the 2015 vintage. Now I'll just read them out to you because I can never remember exactly which ones, what the percentages are. So it's Petit Manseng, 27%, Viognier, 25%, Chenin Blanc, 16%, Chardonnay, 15%, and 17% are other varieties. And those other varieties, they don't usually disclose them, but I can only assume, after drinking many a vintage of this particular wine, I'm only assuming it's got a little bit of Marsanne in there, perhaps a little bit of Roussanne, a little bit of Grenache Blanc, I would imagine as well, maybe some Picpoul and a few other bits and pieces from the Rhone Valley and all around the south of France. Obviously all on their own vineyards, but sort of little grape varieties, they're little sort of secret sauce, if you will. They're not going to let you know what it is. And this particular white wine has been produced there since, I believe, since the late 1970s. So it's quite an historic sort of cuvée for them. And it is absolutely fantastic. If you think of, well, if you're familiar with many sort of aromatic white blends which do sort of have Chenin Blanc and Chardonnay or Riesling and other sorts of things all in there, aromatic white wines from around the world, especially in the New World, I can think of a few producers off the top of my head, such as Coupe in California, who were inspired by the absolute beauty of this white wine, and this has led them to create their own sort of interesting white wine aromatic blends, such as well, off the top of my head again, the Coupe, the Bien Nacido Cuvée. I know that this was a source of inspiration for that because this is that uses the Viognier and Chardonnay all together. I think it's a 60% Chardonnay and the rest, Viognier and then the rest is Chardonnay. Nonetheless, there are a few, many, a legendary in their own right, winemaker and winery around the world, which have tried a bottle of this and they've been inspired to try and recreate their own sort of aromatic goodness. Anyway, let's give it a little sniff on the nose, shall we? So this is quite young. I'd like to point out this is the 2015, and I think it even says on the label. So it is a bit like a Bordeaux Blanc, a Bordeaux Rouge, in fact, actually. It says enjoy its explosive aromas during its first 3 years, or age for up to 15 years. So this is advice that many people, when they're drinking sort of top-end Bordeaux Rouge, would actually recommend to you, because of the fact that in their youth it can be quite fruity, quite upfront, and quite enjoyable to sort of have and drink. But then after about 10 years, or if you sort of leave it for about 10 years, it sort of falls into a bit of a slump, and then it starts waking back up, as it were, again. And then once it wakes back up again, it's got all those beautiful sort of primary fruit flavors, but they've been developed into these beautiful secondary flavors, and they become very intense and very exciting and very interesting. And in many respects, this does exactly the same sort of thing. It's very exciting and fruity and floral in its youth, and we'll get around to what I was just sniffing there in a second. And then you leave it for 5, 10 years, or even up to 15, as it says on the label, in the cellar, and then after that time I've had a 20-year-old version of this particular, well, not this vintage, but this particular white wine, and it really does start to sing after about 15, 20 years. All these sort of beeswax and sort of flavors come out, and it's just beautiful. And as I said, these guys have got a bit of a proven track record, so I would take their advice any day. Anyway, so as I said, so this is quite young, so it is still a little bit sort of very much in those sort of primary white fruit characteristics. And it's got those lovely sort of red apples, well, red apple, golden apple, and again, quite a lot of ripeness this particular vintage as well. So automatically we're starting to see a lot of sort of apricot, bunch of nectarine, and quite fleshy sort of fruits as well. There are some tropical fruits coming through as well, which are lovely. Sort of pineapple, sort of a melon sort of flavour, sort of white watermelon coming through as well, or yellow watermelon coming through as well. It's just lovely, and just a touch, very much just a touch of sort of passion fruit, which is very, very cool, very exciting. And what I love about this particular wine is that once you do sort of leave it in this glass and you just swirl it around for however many moments throughout the night, it just does develop. And it's very, very cool because, of course, it is an amalgam, as I say. I repeat, Petit Manseng, Viognier, Chardonnay, Chenin Blanc in the majority, with a few other grape varietals as well. Every single time you sniff it, it smells completely different, and that's exciting because at the beginning it is quite citrusy, as I was sort of saying, quite lean, like a Petit Manseng you would expect. And then it becomes very plush, it becomes very apricot-y, very rich and juicy, like a Viognier. And then you go back to it and it's very Chenin Blanc, like it is at the moment, and it's quite steely, quite minerality based. And sort of again back to that sort of citrusy sort of side of things, then it warms back up again, and you're starting to get these sort of, well, not nutty necessarily, but definitely a lot more sort of tropical and those sort of stone fruit flavours like you'd expect from a Chardonnay. So it's really quite a, well, it's a wine lover's wine, it's a wine nerd's wine, I suppose, but really it's got something, quite literally, something for everyone in here. Anyway, let's give it a little bit of a taste. So on the palate, again, something for everything's happening around there. I mean, I've just from that little sip, I was getting sort of yellow nectarines, a bit of white nectarines, these sort of honeysuckle sort of aromas, these beautiful, all sorts is happening in there. And you sort of get these sort of like lemon sherbet flavours coming through, so that would be the Petit Manseng influence coming through there. Sort of a lime zest sort of flavour coming through as well, which is lovely, and then it sort of warms up again. And you are getting those sort of peachy, apricot-y flavours, which would be the Viognier, and just this lovely, as far as the palate weight is concerned, and sort of the texture, very textural, very soft, very rich, very much like your classic Viognier. Viognier is definitely coming in there, and it's giving that sort of richness, that suppleness to the palate. But then the Chenin Blanc and that Petit Manseng, that's going to be giving it the acidity. So it's very, very interesting, really, how it all interplays on the palate, because it is sort of fleshy and ripe and juicy, but it does have that sort of Riesling-esque acidity, which sort of pierces right down your palate, keeps it lively, but then it sort of comes back into this creamy goodness, and it's, God, it's good. I always surprised by just how good this particular white wine is. And so, anyway, we've got all the information down below. You can check it out. You can see what a few reviews of, well, I think there were quite a few 5-star reviews of this particular white wine with many of our buyers online. You can, so like away, please. Comment away. See if you've had this particular vintage, if you've had this particular wine, or any of the other Daumas Gassac wines. They are a legendary wine. So let us know if you liked it, if you liked the video, and all the rest. And then of course please subscribe away, that would be fantastic, and share away with all your other wine loving friends and family. That would be much appreciated. And of course, anyway, I'm going to go back for a couple of sips or two, so I'll let you go, and cheers.